A number of years ago, I read a book by the now late wealth manager and founder of the Vanguard Investment Fund Corporation, John Bogle. And the book has a very simple one-word title. The title of the book is Enough. Enough. It's a word that I suspect that when we set goals for ourselves, whether they be financial, which was Bogle's world, or whether they be relational, or whether they be professional, or what have you, it's a hard thing to know when we get there. What exactly is enough? When would you decide, okay, I have enough? Not I'm done, not there's nothing else worth pursuing, but it's enough. And so in Bogle's book, he tells the story of the two renowned authors, Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller. And he says that Vonnegut and Heller were invited to a billionaire wealth manager's party out in the Shelter Island community on Long Island. And Vonnegut says to Heller, "What would you say if you knew that our host made more money yesterday from his wealth management than you have made in all of the sales of your book, Catch-22? And Heller said, "Well, I would say that I have something that our host will never have. Enough." So Bogle, it's not a very large book, maybe about that thick. And it's not only about finances, although that's Bogle's area of professional expertise. But Bogle explores ways in which we might think about when we don't need to keep trying to pursue statistics, when we don't need to try to outpace somebody else, the stereotypical keeping up with the Joneses, but it's really, as we know, exceeding the Joneses, right? Because we need to be better. And I thought about that book this week when I was reflecting on this gospel passage, because this is Jesus's summation of what his life's work and ministry has been about. So, from a perspective of Christian faith, if we were to take Bogle's thesis and overlay it onto the pursuit of relationship with God, this passage from the end of the Gospel of John, these 11 verses, are very instructive. What would it mean as Christians to get to enough? What did it mean for the Son of God who was sent into the world, and we sometimes say to transform relationship between humanity and God? What would it mean for that mission to have achieved enough? It's a valuable place of reflection. Because for those who don't spend time in that reflective place, you're always unsatisfied. Never enough is a very easy place to be. Because there is always somebody else, there's always another measure or standard that is more. And the messages that we receive culturally are that more is always to be strived for. But what about enough? And so Jesus is saying, "Father, the hour has come." He's not on his deathbed, but we might think of it that way. When you're on your deathbed, and people make jokes about that, right? You know, one of the sayings, when you're on your deathbed, nobody ever says, "I wish I'd spent more time at the office," et cetera, et cetera. But what do you think about? What would be a reflection that in the span of my life, it was enough? And so Jesus starts off with something that seems like a little bit of a circular wordplay. He says, glorify your Son so that the Son may glorify you. And then he goes on. But it's really important to recognize why this idea of being glorified, which is not a word that we tend to use, although there's some parallels. People generally like the spotlight. They like recognition. In social media culture, in which influencers' currency is likes and followers, being glorified means being recognized by more and more people. But some people have, I think, legitimately asked, if you're God and you are all present and all influential and all knowing in the cosmos, why would you need glory? Is that an ego thing? Is God about likes and followers? And what Jesus says in this thing that seems a little circular is really, really important. Glorify your Son so that the Son may glorify you. It's not about tell me how great I am. It's about give me an opportunity so that others may recognize who I am pointing to. And that's a really, really important part of the Christian faith and life. The blessings that God offers to us, the ways in which God extends us grace and strength and inspiration and mercy, is not supposed to be a dead-end cul-de-sac in our own lives. So what if part of enough for you and me is in the ways in which we have been blessed, in the recognition that we have got, in the successes that we had, in the relationships that we treasure, we can point through those things back to God. Glorify your Son so that the Son may glorify you, so that I can use the opportunities in which I might have recognition or success or joy in order to point back to God as the source of all that I am and all that I have. That's a part of enough. He goes on to say, this is eternal life. Here's another instructive thing. I think for many people of faith, that is an important goal. This alluring idea that through faith, our lives might not be a nihilistic void at the end of our human days, but that there might be, as our burial service proclaims, some kind of transformation in which life is not ended but changed. And we use this term eternal life to try to gather that concept up. And so Jesus says, this is eternal life. When the Son of God is saying, let me give you a definition, my ears are going to perk up. Yes, please, tell me. What is it? That they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. I joked last Sunday, or maybe the Sunday before, about different conceptions that people have of heaven, and I said some people who like golf might talk about the great 18 links in the sky, or whatever it is that, we might imagine as pleasure in heaven. But Jesus says, it's that they may know you. So a big part of enough is knowing God. And sometimes that seems a little bit hard to wrap our heads around. God is so big, and we're necessarily limited in awareness and knowledge and human capacity and what have you. But we can describe relationship. We can describe relationship with other people, whether it's a close relationship or whether it's a distant relationship, whether it's an easy relationship or whether it's strained, whether it's one in which we feel like we can truly be ourselves or whether we have to be performative. There's all kinds of different ways in which we assess relationship, and so we can do that with God as well. Do you know God? And if somebody asked you that question, who is God in your life? How would you answer that? I talked recently about an elevator pitch, that thing that is a short synopsis of what it means to be a Christian. Well, what would your elevator answer be to Do you know God? And tell me about the God that you know. And Jesus says that the answer to that is eternal life. Not righteous accomplishments, not pious actions, not check boxes of church attendance. Those things might contribute to relationship to God, but they are means to an end and not the end in and of itself. So Jesus goes on. He says, I glorified you on earth by finishing the work that you gave me to do. Somebody joked with me one time about to-do lists. And they said, yeah, you get to the end of your to-do list when you're dead. Before that, it's just a continuing list of things. And I thought, oh, that sounds kind of discouraging. But then, on the other hand, okay, there's purpose, there's meaning, there's things to be about in this life. And then Jesus, in his quasi-deathbed speech, says, I glorified you on earth by finishing the work that you gave me to do. That sounds like enough. What it is that I have come to understand that I have been in this life to be about, I have done that. Elsewhere in the New Testament, there is this image of running the race, finishing the race with faithfulness. Paul uses that imagery. Jesus says, I have finished the work you have given me to do. He goes on, I have made your name known to those whom you gave me from the world. I have made your name known. Our relationship with God is not a dead-end cul-de-sac that is supposed to just be a private possession, in spite of how our culture teaches us to be reticent and hesitant and to hold back because, it's not polite to talk about religion in society. This gospel says exactly the opposite. If you're not talking about faith in society, if you're not taking that risk, if you're not putting out there what is for you a tremendous treasure, then is it a tremendous treasure? If you are sharing more about that restaurant that you really love, or about the sports team that you follow, or about the latest investment tip that you had, but you're scared to talk about your faith, what does that say relatively about the value of restaurants and sports teams and stock tips versus relationship with God? And so Jesus says, I have made your name known to those who you gave me from the world. And the worst that can happen to us when we participate in that aspect of enough is somebody blows you off. Okay, their loss, not yours. How many times did that happen to Jesus? Did he go around and everybody whom he talked about relationship with God go, oh, I've seen the light, I'm going to convert now? He experienced rejection time after time after time. It ultimately got him killed. Probably if we talk about our faith with other people, we won't experience that fate. But this is a part of enough. And so then he says, now they know that everything you have given me is from you. For the words that you gave to me I have given to them, and they have received them and know in truth that I came from you, and they have believed that you sent me. He's talking about you and me. We're the them whom words have been given to. We're the them who have the opportunity to know that Jesus has come from God and how profound that is, or not. And if we know it, and if we take it deeply into the core of our being, it is hard for me to think of anything else that can be more enough than that. So this short 11 verses are really profound. When I was looking into John Bogle's life, I came across a speech that he gave, a commencement speech to a class of MBA business graduates. And You may have been on the receiving end of one of those speeches. If you are a graduate, you may have gone to a graduation ceremony and heard this kind of thing. And typically people are expecting somebody with great wisdom and life experience to impart something profound and inspiring that will send the graduates out into the world to lead lives of purpose and great consequence. And Bogle made an attempt to do that. It was okay, as speeches go. But I wonder if we recognize how much that happens in the speeches of Jesus the Christ in the Gospels. I wonder how much we look to the wisdom that is imparted by the Son of God that we hear week after week after week, and put that beside the gurus of our own age that we listen to when we read for some kinds of profound insights that will unlock the keys of success to our lives. It's all there. We already have it, and we have had it. And the great thing about it is enough. And so as you hear these words, my encouragement is that you let them seep into you, that you give yourself a chance to marinate in them for a bit, that you don't let them just pass you by, or if something kind of makes you go, that you come back to that and you spend time in the wisdom of it, because the words that are gifts to us are a part of Jesus saying, I did it. I gave them the words that you gave to me, and they have kept them. Would that be able to be said about you and me? We got it, and we kept it. We took it in, and we valued it, and we treated it as precious treasure, and we put it alongside, if not above, the other things in our lives that motivate us to try to strive for more and more and more. In the liturgy, there is a place in which we talk about the peace which passes all understanding. And I love that phrase. I don't know if it's ever captured you before. The peace that passes all understanding. I want some of that. Where do I get that? Like the woman at the well, "Sir, please give me this water so that I might not have to thirst again." And that peace which passes all understanding, I am convinced, comes with realizing when you have enough. And so the life of Christ, which has been revealed anew to us, the gift of new life leading to everlasting life that we celebrate in this Easter season concluding this week, is telling us that we have everything that we need. I don't know what your financial account balances are telling you, whether you have everything that you need or not. I don't know what your relationship account balances are telling you, whether you're in a good place or you're not. I don't know what the other measures of success or accomplishment or satisfaction in your life are telling you. But what I do know is that the gospel tells us that we have enough. And that is more than a great gift. It is a reassurance that in God, all that we are and all that we have has been cared for lovingly and preciously. May you take that reassurance, may you take that peace which passes all understanding, may you take the gift of that wisdom and dwell in it, and let it dwell in you, so that one day you might be able to share with somebody else, as Bogle was trying to share in writing his book. Hey, you know what? Be at ease. There is available to you and to me and to all people a source of unconditional love and blessing that requires not that you be better in the rat race, but that you simply be open and accepting and let God's love dwell in you, for it is enough.